Today we're getting a little personal. Our generation is so lonely, and it's actually been declared a public health emergency by the World Health Organization. Making friends in your 20s, or just as a young adult, is really difficult, and that's what I want to talk about today. This will be kind of a video essay, but also just a chat to be a bit vulnerable and talk about my experience trying to make friends as someone in their early 20s and also someone living in a foreign country. So grab a coffee and we're going to talk about loneliness and adult friendships today. Cheers. If you're new here, I'm Carla. I talk about, internet culture, society, and just anything we want to talk about on this channel. So if you're interested in any of that, please do subscribe. We're growing quite the cute community and recently hit 1,000, and now we're at 1,300, which is absolutely amazing. And I can't wait to continue making more videos for you all, as well as get to know each other a bit better. A lot of us have just finished university or maybe went straight into work after high school, and you no longer have a lot of these built-in spaces to make connections. So I want to talk about all of that today, why we're so lonely, why it's so difficult to make friends as an adult in your 20s, and just in general how we can try and alleviate these feelings of loneliness that so many of us are experiencing. So we as a society are deeply struggling with loneliness, yet we still are probably more conscious of the fact than ever that friendship and connection and community is so important. It's definitely a topic of discussion on social media, and I think a lot of people are becoming more and more aware, especially with the state of the world, that community is what keeps you happy. It's what keeps you wanting to be in a certain place, and it's generally just really important to your quality of life. So the US Surgeon General said that the mortality effects of loneliness are equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And when it comes to Europe, in the EU, 13% of 20,000 respondents in a survey reported feeling lonely most or all of the time in the 4 weeks preceding the survey. And I say that our attitudes towards friendships are changing and we are realizing how important they are, perhaps as a side effect of being so lonely. I mean, I'm not sure if that's the reason why, but that's my little hypothesis. But a survey from the Pew Research Center showed that 61% of US adults say having close friends is extremely or very important for people to live a fulfilling life. And that might seem like, okay, obviously we all know that. But the reason why I say this shows just how much we do value friendship is because this 61% was much higher than people who said the same thing about being married, having children, or having a lot of money. The percentages for those were less than 30% for all of them. So why is it so difficult to make friends? There are many, many reasons, but to me, what it boils down to is that the way society is set up doesn't allow for adults to have spaces to make meaningful connections. So when you're in school, you spend, however many hours of your day pretty much with the same people, changing classes, learning new things, going to gym class, and having these shared experiences with each other while you discuss a variety of topics. And in uni, it's the same thing, you go to class with the same people, you eat with the same people, you sleep, with or next to the same people. And I personally found that really overwhelming when I was a first year in college, and I didn't realize that until I got into my second year, and I was like, wow. I was completely overwhelmed constantly being around the same people, and granted, people who at the end of the day I didn't necessarily connect with, and I don't have long-lasting friendships from that time in my life, which is completely fine, So obviously having these built-in structures doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to find your lifelong friends. I didn't find my lifelong friends in college, but it does make it a lot easier. And I think now if you're watching this and you're about to graduate or you're a recent grad, I graduated in 2021, we are all experiencing the fact that there aren't any structures like that in adult life. And that if you want to find spaces where this is possible, you very much have to seek them out on your own. And I think because we don't have these spaces is the reason why so many people turn to drinking. Now, I love a little drink. I'll be the first person to say it. My favorite cocktails: old fashioned, no one asked, Negroni, espresso martini, Aperol spritz in the summer, amaretto sour. I think those are my top 5. If I could name them all off the cuff like that, those are my top 5. So this video isn't about alcohol, but I do want to talk about drinking because that's what a lot of people turn to. Also, if you're watching this part of the video, comment the dancing friends emoji. I feel like that's a cute one, and then we can dance together in the comments. When you're in college, it might be a bit different. Let's say you've been hanging out with these people in the dorm room or in the dining hall or in class, and then finally you're going to do something with each other outside of these more academic spaces, and you guys decide to go out. Maybe something crazy happens. Maybe you all gossip about it the next day, and boom, a deeper friendship is born. And that's a very different context to how we drink as young adults, I think. What I see is that we mainly drink to go out with people we already know, to catch up with a friend we haven't seen in a while, or just to de-stress with, again, friends that we already know. It's not necessarily a space for making new friendships. And I understand this, like after a week at work, if I want to catch up with a friend I haven't seen in a few weeks, I don't necessarily want to invite newer friends because I'm trying to catch up with my current friend, and that's a way that I'm trying to continue that relationship. And then on the other hand, if you do want to go for a drink with a group of newer friends, there's not always a big opportunity to have a meaningful conversation or to even have a shared experience. Something that's really helped me is understanding that you have friends that you connect with in different ways. So, you have your friends that maybe you like to go out with. You have your friends that you go to for advice. You have your friends where you guys can talk about anything. You can go out, you can stay in, you can get their advice, you can give them advice, you can sit with each other and do nothing. Those to me are, the deep connections, the deep friendships. And it feels like they are really rare, which is a bit sad, especially when you don't live near those people, it can kind of suck. But more frustrating is the fact that I think it's rare because we never get the opportunity or have the energy to try and develop that with our other friends who maybe we see for a drink once a month. And for me personally, I cannot hear what people are saying. I'm like, excuse me? So that's another thing, because when you're hanging out with someone and the whole time you're like, what? Oh, okay. You don't know what they're saying at all. Yeah, you did not get to know them on a deeper level. I'm sorry. But what else did we do to make friends before we could legally drink and before people were so busy that was the only thing that they want to do after work or on the weekends? Hobbies. I think in general, especially for men, but in general in adulthood, hobbies aren't necessarily encouraged. And they can actually be seen as a sort of weird thing for an adult to have. And I do think we're changing our perception of hobbies bit by bit on social media. You'll see people talking about how instead of going to the bar that weekend, they went to a pottery class with their friend, or maybe they started going to their local community center and using the sewing machines there. Things like that. I think we're seeing a lot more of that online, but that is also a sign of the fact that it's a weird thing to do and that people have to really put themselves out there to do something like that. So when you're in school, you might have art class, you might have summer camp, you might have clubs where you partake in these more creative things or just sort of activities, hobbies that aren't working towards a specific goal. They're not for grades, it's not to get a job, etc., etc. I asked you guys in the community page on my channel what you think about loneliness and making friends in your 20s, and someone replied about exactly this, the fact that there aren't spaces to partake in the things that you like to do. To give an example, I pushed myself to start using the sewing machines at a library near me, or it's more like a community center, and that was really, really lovely. The people there were all in their 60s and 70s probably. And that was really, really sweet. But honestly, it wasn't a realistic way for me to make friends. It was a good way to get out of the house and just work on a creative project, but not necessarily for making meaningful connections. Although I love chatting with the ladies there. They were so funny. And even though I do think our attitudes towards hobbies are changing, like I said, I think there is still a part of us that sees having hobbies as an adult as something that's a bit nerdy or maybe even boring or just very granny-like. Maybe I'm biased because I'm talking specifically about crochet and sewing and things like that in my case. But in general, I think when it comes to hobbies, the only one I can think of that allows for people to make meaningful friendships easily or more easily in a dedicated space are like run clubs, which I know lots of people have been talking about run clubs being the new dating apps. Or gyms, women's gyms, or some sort of sports clubs. Sometimes in those spaces, the people there are really, really dedicated to it. And if you don't feel that same way, it might be difficult because that is the thing you're bonding over. But to be fair, you could meet someone in that setting and be like, oh, we actually have so many other things in common. And a beautiful friendship could form out of that. But all of this to say, it's quite difficult that we don't have built-in spaces and socially acceptable spaces to partake in hobbies to meet other people. Okay, now let's specifically get into the difference between friendships and deep, meaningful friendships. Again, if you're introverted like me, you might also prefer to have a friendship where, you can hang out and do absolutely nothing. And maybe this type of friendship is just rare in and of itself, but and I think I said this earlier, I think what may make them so rare is the fact that, again, we don't have the opportunities to establish these friendships. A recent report from Harvard's Graduate School of Education and Research found that nearly half of young adults felt like no one checked in on them in a way that showed they genuinely cared, which is really sad, And I think it also shows how much our generation is craving that. While Pew found that there was sort of a U shape with loneliness for younger adults and then older adults, they also found that young adults really, really value deep connections. And I think this is exhibited by the fact that younger people want to talk to their friends about things like their mental health. They found that young adults are more likely to talk about mental health with close friends. 37% of young adults said this, compared with 29% of those 30 to 49 and 14% of those aged 50 and up. So maybe our generation is just a bit pickier. We want friends that we can get deep with, but we're struggling to actually find that. And I really relate to this. I've just never really loved being in a big group and having a bunch of friends where the conversation is surface level. I find it a bit exhausting to go to, maybe a party or to a pub or whatever, and to meet a bunch of people and all of your conversation is just surface level, and then you go home and it's like, but is this friendship? Is that all there is to it? But to be fair, sometimes you're not always craving to have such a deep conversation and you just want to chill out, and that's fine too. But I think overall, we as humans, and especially us as younger people, want these deep, deep connections. I posted this on TikTok. By the way, I'm carlascalling everywhere. And it was just a little slidey post about an event I went to in an effort to make new friends in London. I had been telling myself I wanted to go to an event like this since I moved here, over 2 years ago now. And finally I did. And I was quite excited. I was a bit nervous. But, I thought, okay, it's like a drinks event. That makes it a bit easier, some liquid courage, it's all girls trying to make friends, it'll be fine. I couldn't hear anything because it was just a drinking-based event. There was no common interest that we knew we all had, and being in a big group meant that it kind of felt like I was networking. And some of you commented, and we talked about the fact that actually going to events with less people that maybe if they do involve drinking, also involve some other sort of common interest is a lot better. And I would even go, and I commented this in that post when replying to someone, but I would even go as far as to say that maybe one-on-one meetups are better. And I haven't done this yet, but I've considered doing friendship dating apps, and I've had friends in the past who have done this and absolutely loved it. And it's a lot scarier, but I also think it might not be as scary as walking into a room and all you have in common is that you want to get a drink on Friday night. Okay, and of course, I wouldn't really be able to talk about friendships in the modern age without talking about social media. I think social media very much gives us two sides of the coin, so to speak. One, maybe making you feel a bit bad about not having like a giant group of friends, a girl gang who you hang out with every weekend, pressuring you to feel like you need to be doing something huge every weekend. And then the other side of the coin is that social media, like I talked about earlier, can provide you with a really great sense of community if you go about it in a healthy way. And Courtney Queen, iconic name, who is a professor at the Department of Public Health at Texas Tech University and a guest professor at a university in Latvia, talked about the fact that social media might not be as horrible as we think for trying to make friendships. She said, "While many studies suggest an association between social media use and loneliness, we need to learn more about other fundamental questions, such as does increased social media use always result in increased loneliness? Surely not. Does everyone who engages in social media use automatically feel lonelier? Also surely not. And does this loneliness last forever? Also not likely." This is really, really interesting because I think it's very easy for us to be like, social media ruins everything and that's why you're so sad and you don't have any friends. But I think this is a classic case of correlation does not equal causation because, like this professor said, you might spend more time on social media because you are lonely. And yes, social media can get extremely toxic and I definitely see how it could actually make you feel lonelier, but I don't think it's completely to blame. I think this has to do a lot more, like I've said plenty of times now in this video, with how our society is set up. I think being on social media and being more present on social media has really changed my life for the better. It's made me more confident. It's made me connect with other people like you. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it, especially as someone who's not super extroverted. And I think, you know, one of the reasons why I took the leap to move abroad is because of seeing people who did that online, who I was really inspired by and began to see as my friends. And I talked a bit about parasocial relationships in this video if you are interested in hearing more about that. But I think real communities do form online, and it's completely valid to connect with someone and build a relationship with them, even if it's one way, if it makes you feel better and again, if you can go about it in a healthy manner. I also think on social media, a lot of people talk about this issue of feeling lonely in your 20s and struggling to make friends as an adult. If you're seeing lots of videos of people hanging out in big groups and doing unique, fun things with their friends that aren't just partying, that instead of seeing it as, you know, an attack on your own social life, you can see it as inspiration for something you can suggest to your friends to do. Because honestly, even if you have friendships where all you do is go out and drink and you don't feel like you're getting to know them on a deeper level, chances are that they are also craving this deeper connection that you're craving. And if you are the person to propose this idea, they might all be completely relieved that you've done that for them. And if they don't respond and they don't want to do things with you that would potentially lead to more shared experiences and a deeper friendship, then find new friends, honestly. And then you know, and you can like move forward with the knowledge that you made an effort. Okay, enough moaning about how difficult it is to make friends and how lonely I feel. So here's what I've been doing and want to continue to do moving forward to develop real, meaningful friendships. I think the first thing you have to do is really identify what you want. In my case, I want that type of friend who, you know, you can both sit on the couch together and do absolutely nothing, and you can talk about your goals. I love to be friends with like ambitious people who have lots of ideas, or friends who, you know, are really funny and we just laugh together the whole time. Those are the types of friendships that really bring me the most like joy and value. So basically just don't get sucked into what other people like me are saying they want out of their friendships on social media, because you can make your friendships whatever you want them to be, honestly. And once you realize, okay, I want this type of friendship, these are the types of people that I want to attract into my life, then you can have a clear idea of what your next steps need to be. And that might seem very like selfish, like I want this type of friend I want. If you're not that, then move along. But I do think there's some value in meeting people halfway. Well, I think there's a lot of value in that, especially with how busy people are. You know, we only have so much time to actually spend time with friends, you know, after work, on the weekends, on holiday, that if someone who you're really trying to build a deep friendship with wants to do something that weekend and they invite you and you're not that keen, either suggesting something else that helps you guys meet in the middle of what you want to do that weekend, or once in a while, just suck it up and go to that thing. And I'm talking to myself too, because, you know, sometimes someone will invite me to something and I'm just like, I don't want to do that. But I never really regret going. So basically, make yourself a bit uncomfortable. That's how we grow, you know? And I'm not saying do a bunch of things you don't want to do and be miserable, because that's not any way to make friends. You're not going to connect with that person if that's how you're interacting with them. But being more flexible, and the worst case scenario is that you don't enjoy it, you don't build a deeper connection with them, or you get to know them more and you guys don't really vibe, then you just move on from there and you learn more about yourself and that person. Okay, and this is also adding myself, but pursuing the one-on-one things and literally just asking to become friends with people. It might not work out, or maybe the person's super nice in that moment, but then when you actually meet up, you guys find out you have nothing in common and don't like each other. And that's fine. That's part of the fun. I don't know if that would be fun, but it's part of the experience at least. So putting yourself out there, either in person or on the friendship dating apps or on social media, and just saying like, hi, this is me. These are things I like to do, and I just want someone to laugh with and talk about my hopes and dreams with, you know? So basically what I'm saying is get clear on what you want, meet people halfway, and get over yourself. You're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to feel so incredibly awkward, but that's what you have to do in order to not feel like you've smoked 15 cigarettes a day. Anyways, I would love to hear your thoughts on loneliness and making friends as a young adult in your 20s, because I think we all have a lot to learn from each other. And when we realize that other people feel the same way, that can be really, really empowering. And it just ironically makes you feel less alone to know that other people feel alone. I really hope you enjoyed this video and that it helped you in some way. If you want to see more from me, then please do subscribe, like, comment, share with your friends, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!